Hello everyone, so in the last video we built out this overview page. So we added in chat.js and we added in our 3 articles, and then we also built our navigation on the top, and it is also responsive on mobile, as you can remember. And now I've just realized that I forgot to do something where on mobile screens when we click on a link here the navbar doesn't close. So let me add in that functionality before we forget, and that is just as simple as going inside the nav link inside here and adding an on click to it, so that when I click on it we're going to pass in our inline function and we're going to say set is open to false, meaning set our state value here to false so that the navbar, which is dependent on our state value, is going to close. So that when I save this, then I can click on this link and it disappears, and then when I can open it again I can click on this and it disappears. So that's looking okay, and on large screens that shouldn't affect our navigation bar. Fantastic. And then I've just realized another thing that I did not do is that I did not give some kind of like cue to show you on which page you are, like we did inside here. So here you can see that the font becomes bold and then the text becomes blue when you click on a certain link. So I want to do that as well inside here. And how we're going to do that is this. And by the way, this is something that I researched in the React docs. So this one right here, in the React Rotterdam docs. I think I'm going to leave this link in the description, though I don't know whether I'm going to remember to do it. What they do is they have an active style here, and then you pass in the styles that you want your link to have, and then you pass it inside your nav link. Now inside the nav link, I don't know whether it works on the link, but it works in the nav link. This is why I also chose this. So you pass it in as a style, and then you get the is active, and whether it is active, then you pass in your active style, which I've just declared on the top. So that is basically what we're going to do. And you know what, let me just copy this part. So copy, and then I'm going to go, where should I do it? I should do it here. So paste it inside here, and then now we're not going to be doing text decoration, except that we're going to be doing the color. So the color for this is going to be, the blue color that I used was hashtag 2563EB. And then what we want to do also is change the font weight. So we're going to say font weight and set it to bold. And remember that now this is JavaScript, so it is camel case, and we have quotation marks inside here. And then now what we're going to do is right below our class name inside our nav link, we're going to pass in our style, and then we're going to pass in our curly brackets, and then our normal brackets, and then our curly brackets once again, and then we're going to check for whether is active is true. And I think this is coming from something in nav link where it is not accessible in the normal link. And then we're going to say that when this is true, so when is active is true, then we want to render our active style. And then if it is false, then we just want to render undefined. So undefined meaning no styles are going to be applied. So active style is coming from this one right here. So that now when I save this and we go back into our application, then this should be highlighted. Would you look at that? And then now when I click on another link, then it is highlighted because we are currently on this link, and so on and so forth. That is looking quite nice. And then now that we are done with the overview page, then let's go ahead into the project page, and then you can begin building it out. So the project page should be, let me close this and close this. The project page is this one right here. And then the first thing I'm going to do obviously is render out our fragment, and then render out a section with a class of max width. Remember, we created the class of max width. And then I'm going to render an h1 that says project, what is it, project overview. I think that's what the text that I had. So save it, and we should be able to see project overview here. Fantastic. And then you know what, let me close many of these tabs that we are not using. And so for the project overview, what we're going to have is this. We're going to have a div with the 2 articles. So the first article is going to be an h2 that says something like what. Let me check just to get the text. So copy this and let me paste it inside here. And then for the paragraph, we're going to copy this text. So copy and paste it inside here. And by the way, this is also another paragraph. So paste it inside another paragraph like so. And then once we have this, then we're also going to create another article. And then this other article is going to be our project's image. So the project's image, which is this one right here. So let me go ahead and get it. And the project's image, remember, it is in our images folder. So I'm going to say import projects from /images / projects.png. And then when I save this, then we should see two grids inside here. Not really two grids, but we should see our first article, and then the second article being this image, which I'm trying to select. Here we go. So this big image here. And so what we're going to do is this. We're going to give this article a class name of bg white and padding all round of 8, and then rounded and shadow dash large. And you know what, I'm realizing a pattern here, because the way we are styling this article is also the same way that we styled the articles inside our overview page. So because I know that we're also going to do the same thing for the articles in the other pages, I'm going to get these classes and I'm going to cut them out, and I'm going to create a custom class called article and save it. And then inside our index.css, I'm going to create the dot article class, and I'm going to say @apply, and then just paste this in, so that now the article classes are going to apply inside here and inside every other article that we're going to be using. So give the second article a class name of article as well, so that now the class names are going to apply on this second article as well. And then now what we need to do is inside this div, we're going to say give this a class name of margin top of 10 to push away from the h1. And then we're going to give this div a class of grid with grid columns dash 1 with a gap of 8 to begin with to separate them out on mobile, that is on mobile. And then on medium screens, we're going to say grid columns dash 2, meaning they're going to appear side by side. Fantastic. And then on large screens, we're going to say grid columns 3. Now, the reason why I'm saying grid columns 3 is because I want this image to span from here all the way to this third one. Now, the way grid is done in CSS is, let me show you. So let me open up F12, and we're going to have this. It says we have a warning, so invalid area attribute. I think you can safely ignore this. I think so, but don't take my word for it. Now, what I want to show you is this. Look at how CSS grid is done. See how it shows you like one grid, and then the second grid being in the center, and then the third grid. So what you want to happen is the first article with the text inside here is only going to take up this first grid. But we want the image to span from this second one all the way up to here, up to the third one. Now, what we're going to do therefore is this. Tailwind CSS makes this very easy. So what we're going to do is we're going to go inside this second article, and we're going to say that for large screens, then we want the column span. So call span to be 3. 3 should be the one. Let me save it. Let me see. Call span 3. Nope, that is not the correct one. So it should be called span 2, meaning start from the second one here to the third one. There we go. So that now you can see that it spans from the second grid, even though we have 3 grids. And by the way, if you don't have 3 grids inside here, this doesn't work. It doesn't work. So you can see what happens now, because now it is only counting 2 grids. So this is the first grid and then the second grid. So in order for this image to span 2 grids and to be on the same level as your article with the text, then you need to apply another extra grid. So grid columns 3 inside here. That is something about CSS grid that you should really learn, because it's very helpful. Now let's go ahead and style this h2. Let me see, it doesn't have much styling. So inside this h2, let's increase the font size. So give this a class name of text XL with a margin bottom of 10 to push away from this second paragraph, from this first paragraph. And then I'm going to go inside this last paragraph and give this a class name of margin top of 6 to push away from the top here. And we're going to have that. That's looking okay. And that is our projects page. And now remember that this is already responsive because we added CSS grid to it. Looking nice, right? Looking nice, if I do say so myself. Now I'm noticing something. This h1 is too close to this. It is too close. I don't know. I don't like it. So what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to go inside the class of max width. So inside the class of max width inside here, and I'm going to say give it a padding on the top of 20 and a padding bottom. And not, let me do that. Let me just say padding y of 20 instead of adding different paddings. So that now this pushes downwards, looking nice. And then inside here, it also pushes downwards. I think that is much better, much better. Fantastic. And then it also pushes downwards because now the padding y is now 20 instead of the 10 that we had used. But it's okay anyway, You can change things if you want. And then now the next page that we're going to have is the documents page. And the documents page is going to be relatively easy because it's only UI. So inside the documents page, we can now close this page. So inside the documents, once again, we're going to render our fragment and then render a section with a class of max width, and then render an h1 that says documents. And then below this, we're going to have a div, and I'm just going to style everything out because we have done it twice before. So this div is going to be a grid with the grid columns -1 to begin with a gap of 8. And then for medium screens, then we're going to have grid columns -2. And then for large screens, then we're going to have grid columns -3. Now this might look complicated, but I'm using emmet so that now when I press enter, then it creates a div with a class name of all of this. And if you want to configure emmet to run in React, by the way, it doesn't run in React by default, but if you want to do so, then you can say control comma to open up your settings, and then on this icon here is going to open up your settings JSON file. And then what you need to do is include this line here. So this will also emmet.include languages, and then JavaScript React, so that you're able to use emmet in JavaScript. So once we have that, then we're going to do this. We're going to render an article with a class of article that we just created. And then inside here, we're going to have an icon. So an icon is going to begin with, so icon. And then below this, we're going to have an h2 that says proposal. And then below this, we're going to have some random text. So let me just say lorem 50. And then below this, we're going to have a small tag, and the small tag is just going to say a date. So let me just say something like I used 27th January, I think, 2022. And then let's go ahead and save this. And then let me remove this space, and we should be able to see our article here. So see how this is our article looking nice, right? So basically that is what we have in the documents page. And I did not use as much text, and by the this text that I used inside our demo here is just basically the same one that that was in the project overview. And so let's go ahead and add in our icons here. These are icons, by the way, not images. And so for our documents page, what we are going to do is this. On this part where we have our icon, I'm going to be rendering an icon called bs file, what was it? File earmark PDF. Earmark PDF, what was it? This one. And this is going to be our PDF icon right here. So let me save this just so to see where it's going to appear. Should be here, okay. And then we are going to style out this icon. So give this icon a class name of text rows dash 400, and then text dash 6xl. Make it bigger. There we go. And then let's give it a margin bottom of 5, pushed away from the h2. And then let's go inside the h2, give this a class name of, let me see, text dash 2xl with a margin bottom of 10 to push away from the paragraph. And then this small tag, we're going to give this a class name. Let me see how it looks, by the way. It's already small, but I just want to change the text color. So text slate dash 600. And then let me say margin top of 5 to push away from the paragraph as well. So that we're going to have, oh, it doesn't work because this needs to be a block element. So block element so that the margin actually works. And now let me not say block, let me say inline block. Okay, so nothing changes here, but let me reduce this margin. It's a bit too big. So the margin bottom here, I'm just going to say margin bottom of 5, pushed away just a bit from this. Okay, so we can work with that. You can see that now this is going to be a proposal, and this text is a bit too much, I think. So let me move everything from here, and then just start with the capital D, and we're going to have that. So let me see the text. That is much more manageable. And then now what we're going to do is just basically copy this article about 5 more times or 4 more times. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we're going to begin by changing, everything else can remain, but we just need to change the icons inside here. So for this icon, we're going to use an icon called AI outline, what's it called, file word. There we go. And then we need to change this color to blue so that it changes to the blue, what's it called, Microsoft Word color. And then the text here is going to say, what did it say? It says terms. And then the third article is going to be an Excel article. So I'm going to say this one is going to be called, oops, AI outline file Excel, change this into emerald so that it is green in color. And then the fourth one is going to be the same word icon. So let me just copy and paste it here. We're here. Change this into blue. And then the fifth one is going to be Excel as well. So AI outline file Excel, change this to emerald. And then this should say what? Members. This should say members. And then this says contract and then budget. So contract and then budget. Fantastic. So let's save this, and what we're going to have on the screen is, there we go. Would you look at that, looking fantastic. And by the way, it is already responsive because we added these classes on top. And just to test it out, you can reduce it to see how it looks for small screens, right around this is for medium screens, so 2 grids on medium screens, and then on small screens it reduces to 1 grid. Looking nice. Now what I've just realized is I need to add a spacing on the bottom of this H1. So I'm going to go inside this div and add a margin top of 10 to push away from the H1 here. There we go. And that is our documents page, looking fantastic. And then now what we need to do is we need to go ahead and create our progress page. And so for our progress page, the way it looks is like so. So we have some tabs inside here, which when we click on them, then it changes the text that is rendered here. And we're going to be doing that as well. And then it also has some text here on the bottom which doesn't change, so that is pretty easy to do. And so what we're going to do therefore is this. We are going to close the documents page and the settings, and we're going to go into the projects, and we're going to be rendering this. We're going to render a section once again with the class of max width, and then we're going to render an H1 that says progress, and then below this H1 we are going to render a UL, and the UL is going to be this one that has the buttons inside here that we're going to be clicking on. And then below this UL we're going to have an article, and then this article is going to be dependent on what we are clicking inside here. So you can tell that we're going to be creating some kind of state, which is going to be data. And then below this article, now we're going to have a div with 2 articles. So article, and then these 2 articles are going to be basically this. So what we're going to do is give this article a class name of article, and then below this we're going to render an H2 that says what is a rich text element, and oops, and then below this we're going to have some paragraph that says something like lorem 100, lorem 100, just so that we can have some bunch of text. And then we're going to copy this and paste it downwards, so that now we're going to have 2 articles, and then the title for the second one is just going to say in progress, and then we're going to say March 15th. There we go. Looking nice. You don't need to add all of this in because I'm sure you know how these elements are going to be styled out and everything. So I'm just going to add some text inside here. And then now what I'm going to do is, if you take a look at what you have, then we're going to have this. So the first thing that I want to do is just separate out these 2 divs, these 2 articles. And I'm going to do that by going inside this div and giving this a class name of grid, and grid columns -1 with a gap of 8. And that's all we need to do because it only has, this is only going to be represented as a 1 grid. And then now that we have that out of the way, then we can begin to work on the functionality of this page. So what we're going to do, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to create some data. So we're going to say const data is equal to an array of objects, and the title for the first one is going to say define, and then I'm going to have some kind of description inside here which is going to be lorem ipsum. So let me just copy something like this up to here. And just to mention it, schools have closed, so if you hear some kind of noise outside, it's the children playing outside. So let me copy this and paste it inside here, and then let's remove this space so that we can remove these errors. Remove this space and this one. Okay, and then I'm going to have another value here called date. Now let me mention something. If you clone the repository doesn't have this part inside here. Now this is just something that I've added in so that like this doesn't look like too skeleton, you know, so that like when we're changing the data that we're showing, then it actually changes something more, you know, so that you can see some kind of interaction on the screen. So now that I have that, then the date for this, what did I set this to? February 10th. Let me say due date Feb 10th. And then what I'm going to do is copy this down 4 more times. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. So Shift Alt and downward. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And then this second text says research, and the date for this says March 10th. So March 10th. And then it says ideation here, and then this should say April 10th. And then next should be prototyping. This says April, this should say May. And then finally we have testing, right? Yes, testing. This should say June 10th, if I have it correct. Fantastic. So now that we have that, then let's go ahead and let's begin to consume this data that we have by setting up our state value. So I'm going to say const, let me call these items once again, is equal to use state, and by default, we're going to pass in the data that we've just created. And then in order to render out this article that we have inside here, then we need to destructure the data for every single object that we have inside here. So I'm going to do that by saying this. I'm going to say const and then destructure the objects. So I want to destructure the title, and then the description, and then the date, and then this is going to be equal to items of a state value that we don't have yet, that is called value. And then let's go ahead and create this state value. So I'm going to say const value and set value. This is going to be equal to use state, and by default we're going to pass in a value of 0. And what this means basically is passing in the value of 0 means passing in the very first item that we have in our data array. And so by doing that, by saying get the items of value, we are setting this data to be dynamic dependent on the value that we're going to have inside here. So if I set the value to 1, for example, then it's going to get this second item, because remember, arrays always start indexing from a 0. Now, once you have that, then let me show you how we're going to be rendering this. We're going to render an h2 inside this article. And then for this h2, we're going to render the title, which you have just destructured inside here. And then below this h2, we're going to render a paragraph. Come on. A paragraph that says description. And then below this paragraph, we're going to render a small tag that says date. Now, when I save this, look at what is going to happen on the screen. We're going to render, of course, use state is not defined. So just go here, control spacebar, import it, and look at that. Now, the article that is showing is the defined article, because that is the first article, because the current value is set to 0. Now, if I set the value to 3, then what we should see is the fourth item. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. Then we should see prototyping inside here. So let me save this and look what happens. Prototyping here. The text, of course, changes, but this text inside here doesn't change because it is technically the same. And I've just realized that probably that wasn't the best idea. It wasn't the best idea, because I also wanted this to kind of like change so that it shows you that the text has changed, you know, something like that. But before I change the text, let me go ahead and style this out. So give this a class name of text-xl. And then let me go ahead first of all and give it, let me say to Excel, give it a margin bottom of 3 to push away from the paragraph, and then go inside this paragraph, give this a margin bottom of 5 to push away from the date, and then go inside this small tag, give it a class name of text slate 600 so that it is the same color as the paragraph. So we're going to have that. And then inside this article, we're going to give this article a class name of articles, that it has the white background with the box shadow. And then of course, let's go inside this article, let's give it a margin bottom of about 8 to push away from this part here. Fantastic. Looking nice, looking nice. So we're going to have that. Now, just because I don't want to look at lorem ipsum all the time, let me go into random text generator. So random text generator.com, and then let's get some random text. So let me copy this part, and then let me replace it with this text first of all, and then copy the second paragraph, replace it with this second article inside here. So what I've done is just replace the text for this article and this one, and then now let me replace it with these articles here, the text for these articles. So let me go inside here, let me copy up to here, copy, and we're going to go inside this first description, paste it here, and then copy this part up to here, replace it with this second description so that we have some kind of dynamic text, you know, and then copy the rest of this, paste it inside this third one, and then copy the rest, copy up to here, replace it with this fourth one, and then finally we can do this up to around here and replace it here, paste it in. There we go. So now let me go ahead and save this, and the text should now change that, like we can have some bit of normal text, so to speak. So we're going to have that looking nice. Now what I'm going to do is this article, I'm going to get this article, and then I'm going to place it inside a div so that I can go inside this div and give this div a class name of grid and grid columns 1, and we don't need to have a gap because there is no other article inside this div. But then what I'm going to do is for medium screens, I want the grid columns to be 2 so that this doesn't go there to the end. It is limited to only one grid, so that we're going to have that. And then what I'm going to do now is, let me see what we need to do. This is prototyping. Oh, I was still showing you this. So if I change this back into 2, then you can see that this is also going to change, and now also the text changes. So that is looking much better. So now what we need to do is we need to have some kind of click event so that the text inside here is going to change depending on the button that you have clicked. And so how we're going to do that is this. We're going to go inside this UL, and then inside this UL we're going to map over our data. So I'm going to say items.map, and then for every item that I get back, I also want to get back the index, and then I'm going to be rendering a list item with the key of index. And then inside this list item, I want to have a button so that I can click on the buttons. And the text for the buttons is going to say item.title. So I'm going to save this, and we should be able to see our UL inside here. Nice. And then inside this UL, let me give this UL a class name of article so that it also has the BG of white, so that we have that. And then inside this UL, let's give it a class of flex and item center. And let me see how this looks. Flex item center. Okay, let's give it a gap of 6, and then let's say flex wrap. And the reason why I'm saying flex wrap is because on small screens, then this is most likely going to go to the end. And see how it goes to the end. I want that when it reaches the end here, then the items automatically go into the next line. Okay, so that's looking much better. And then what I'm going to do is inside this UL, I'm going to add a margin on the Y of 8 to separate it out from this title here, as well as from this part right inside here, to separate it out from the ideation like thingy inside here that we have. And then now I'm going to style this button, and this button is going to have dynamic styles. So I'm going to place in my curly brackets and then my backticks, and then I'm going to say this. I'm going to give this these buttons a class name of shadow. So all the buttons are going to have a very slight box shadow. And then I'm going to say padding Y of 2 and padding X of 4. And then I want them to be rounded as well. And then I want that when I hover over the buttons, they should have an opacity of about 75%. And then they should have a transition, a very slight transition. So let me save this. And then now, I don't know whether you can see that like the transition is there, but it is very minimal because the button is white. It has a white background color, and this is also a white background color. So you can't really see it. But now what we need to do is this. We need to check for the current tab. So technically these are tabs that we are creating. So we need to check for the current tab that we are on, and then we need to give the current tab, the button of the current tab, a different background color to give you a cue that this is currently where you have clicked on. So we're going to say this. Inside here, we're going to pass in our $sign and curly brackets, and we're going to check for whether the index of the button is equal to, so 3 equal signs is equal to the value. And so we are checking for whether this index is equal to the value, our initial state value that you have. And let me change this back to 0 because I'll forget. And we're saying that when the index of the button that you've clicked on is equal to the value of the tab that is currently showing, and when this is true, then we want the button to have a BG of blue of 400. So let me save this and now see what will happen. So there we go. So you can see that now we are currently on the define tab, and the define tab has a background color of blue, right? Now if I change this into 1, then what should happen is this tab should light up. There we go. So that is working correctly, and you can see that now even this changes. So what you need to do now is, let me change this back to 0, and then inside here let me also say that the text should be white and then the font should be bold, so that this is just a bit better. You can see that now it is like a bit more defined. And then let me also increase the letter spacing by saying tracking wide just a bit, to increase the letter spacing just a bit. And you know what, this should not be applied here, it should be applied on every button. So tracking wide, so for every button. And then what I'm going to do now is, inside here I want to add responsiveness, where I'm going to say that for medium screens I want all of these buttons to go up to here. So for medium screens I'm going to say justify between, which is going to take the buttons up to here. That's looking much better in my opinion. I think I like this one to be like this. It looks much better. And then finally what we need to do is we need to add the click event for these buttons, and that's very easy to do. What we're going to do is, inside the button here we're just going to say that on click, then we're going to pass in our inline function, and then we're going to say set value into the index of the button, meaning change our value here, our state value, to be equal to the index of the button that we click on. So save this, and what you're going to see happen is when I click on research, then research lights up because we're currently on the research tab, and then the article inside here changes to the research tab. And then when I click on ideation, we have that, and then prototyping we have that, and then testing we have that. Looking fantastic. And then on small screens the functionality remains the same. You can see that this is what happens. Nice. Okay, there we go. So that is going to be our progress page, and then next we have our assets page. And so for the assets page, we're going to be fetching data from what is called JSON placeholder. So JSON placeholder. And what JSON placeholder does is it gives us a free fake REST API. So we can use this just to populate your apps. If you're not sure of how like your UI is going to look, then you can just use this API to just test everything out and so on and so forth. So it has a couple of endpoints, and we're going to be using the photos endpoints. But remember that the photos endpoints has 5,000 photos. I don't want to render 5,000 photos on a single page. So I'm going to show you what we're going to do about that. So an example of an endpoint that we're going to be hitting is this one. An example of a request, sorry, that we're going to be sending is this one right here. And then now instead of going into /to-dos, we're going to be going into /photos. So let me copy this part inside here, and then let's go inside assets, and then inside assets on top we're going to import use state and use effect, because we're going to be fetching data from an API. And then what we're going to do next is this: we're going to set up our state values. So I'm going to call our state values photos, and then inside here, oh sorry, photos and set photos, because now we actually need to use this function. And inside here, use state by default is going to be an empty array, because we're going to populate it when we fetch our data. And then we're going to call our use effect. And by the way, let me just mention something in case you're wondering. The reason why inside our progress here I'm not using the function which is associated with this state value, the reason I'm not using that function is because we are calling that function nowhere else in our application. So there's no need to define it, because it's going to give us a warning in our application if we define that function and never use it. And in previous videos, what I've said is that warnings in development mode in React become errors when you are deploying them. So it's better to take care of all the warnings than to have errors when you are deploying it, because those errors can be really annoying to some point where there are servers which will not deploy your application when you have those errors. So important to note that here, because we are not using any function, we're not using the function that is corresponding to this state value, so there's no need to define it. But in our assets page, we are going to be using this function somewhere, so we need to define it. Okay, so we have our use effect inside here. Let's remember to add in an empty dependency array so that the use effect only runs once on the initial render. And then inside here, I'm going to set up a try catch block. And inside the try catch, we are going to do this. I'm going to call a function here called let me say get photos, and inside get photos we're going to call an asynchronous function, and then we are going to say this, the response that we get back, so const res is equal to await fetch, and we're going to be fetching data from this API, and it's going into /photos, and then the data that we get back is going to be equal to await res.json, and then below this we're going to say set photos into the data that we get back, and then let me also say, you know what, let me also say console log data, so that we can see the what we get back. So console log the data, and then below this let's call our function that is called get photos. Okay, and then for the error I'm just going to say console.error the error, so just log the error that we get to the console. That's basically this, and we're going to have that. So let me save this, and then let's go inside our assets page, and then let's open up F12, and we should be able to see an array of 5,000 items. Now I don't want to get 5,000 items, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say data.slice slice, and we're going to get the first 20 items. So slice the first 20, so slice here again 0 to 20, and so now when we console log, then we should get only 20 items here, so that now I can just go ahead and look. I want to get the thumbnail URL, the title, as well as the ID. And so now what we're going to do is this, instead of just returning a div, we're going to return a section with a class of max width once again, with an h1 that says assets, and then below this h1 we're going to have a div, and you know what, the div is going to have the same class names as, I think, which one was it, almost as this one. So let me just copy these class names, copy, and then paste them inside here because it's going to be easier. And then we're going to define for large screens to have grid columns of 3, and then inside this div we're going to have an article with a class of article, and then inside here we're going to have an image tag, which is going to be coming from, actually not, this is actually wrong, this is wrong, sorry for that. First, what we need to do is we need to map over our data that we have inside here. So I'm going to say photos.map, and then for every photo that I get back, then I want to render an article with the key of photo.id, and photo.id is coming from the API here because the ID is going to be the unique key, and then the article is going to have a class name of article, and then below this we're going to say this, we want to render an image, and then this image is going to be photo.thumbnail URL, and then for the alt attribute, in case the image fails to load, then let me see what we can do. We can render the photo.title. So let's render the photo.title, and then let's save this, and then what we should have on the screen is voila, there we go, looking nice, looking nice. And we're going to have this on the screen. Now what I've just realized we need to do is add a gap here because we don't have a gap here. So let's add a gap of 8. There you go, to separate them out. Looking nice, looking nice. And that is going to be our assets page, except that now we need to add a margin on the top here. So for the h1, sorry, let me do it inside this div. Let's say margin top of 10 on the div to push away from this h1. Fantastic. Would you look at that? And once again, it is responsive because we are using CSS grid. Looking nice. And then finally we have our apps page, and then for the apps page we're going to do something very simple. Let me show you what we're going to do. We're going to do basically just this. So let's go ahead and begin building this out. So inside our apps page, we can close these 2 pages. Inside our apps page, we're going to begin by returning a fragment and then a section with a class of max width, and then inside here we're going to have an h1 that says apps, and then below this h1 we're going to have a div with, I think I have these class names, yes, I still have them copied, and then let's also add a margin of 10 on the top, and then inside here let's render an article with a class of article, and then inside here, now see how this is structured, it renders an icon first and then this text. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be rendering the icon here, and then I'm going to add in a div, and then this div is going to have the h2 that says Google Analytics, for example, so Google Analytics, and then below this h2 we're going to have a paragraph that says all in one site analytics, and we're going to have that. So we have the article, we have the div, And then the icon that we're going to be rendering here is coming from IO Analytics. There we go, from React Icons, so that we're going to have that. And then let me save this so that we can start this out and we can see what we're going to have on the screen with my app. So this is what we have by default. Now I'm going to give this a class name of text orange dash 400, which is going to change it into an orange color. And then let me say text dash 4XL, make it bigger. There we go. And then now I'm going to go inside this article and display this article as a flexbox so that this comes here. Okay. And then I'm going to say items dash start and then give them a gap of 6. Should be okay. There we go. So that we're going to have that. And then make this h2 bigger. So inside this h2, give this a class name of text dash 3XL. That should be big enough. Too big. Text dash XL should be fine. Okay. And so for small screens, this is how it's going to look. Fantastic. And what I want to do is I want to go ahead and add in these two articles. So copy this and paste it 1 and 2. And then the second article is going to have an icon here called SI Hotjar. And this is Hotjar. Is it camel case or small? Hotjar. Copy this downwards and then let's import it. So SI Hotjar. And then this is coming from React Icons SI. Fantastic. And then now this is going to say rows. And then this says, the text for this says what? Hotjar. So this says Hotjar. And then let me just copy this text here, copy and paste it here. Oops, wait a minute. That's the wrong one. Okay. So let me copy this div. This div should be here. Paste it here. Oops, is that the correct one? This div, the div should be here. Fantastic. And then this third one now says name chip. So name chip. The text says this. Copy and paste it here. And then the icon should say SI name chip. Name chip, this one. There we go, should have imported it. And let's go ahead and save this and let's see what we have in our application. So it should say 1, 2, and 3 here. 1, 2, there we go. So we have 1, 2, and 3. This is not orange in color, it's red. So it's because of the mistake that I made here. So this should also say rows 400. And then let's remember to add a gap here. So let's add a gap of 8 to separate them out. Fantastic. And then now on small screens, you can see that they're stacked one on top of the other because once again, we are making it responsive by using CSS grid. And then on medium screens, they are stacked twice. So 1, 2. And then on large screens, because we don't have a 3-grid column, then they're just going to remain as 2 grids. And then once we have that, then we're going to have an h2. So below this div, we're going to have an h2 that says general, and then below this, we're going to have once again an article like this. Let me just copy this article and paste it here. And not just the article, but the article should be inside a div, because the way I structured it is that this is also a grid on its own, even though it doesn't have other items. So that's why it's uniform as it is. So inside this div should have the same class names as this. So copy and paste them. Let me see where it's going to be. So paste them inside here. Let me save it. And then actually not, let me change these icons first of all. The icon should say what? The icon is called BS chart left text. So chart left text. I hope it has imported it. There we go. And then now this is going to say chat. And then the text says what? Customer support. So customer support here. Save it. And we should be able to see that. So there we go. So that is our chat. And then let me not reduce, but let me increase the margin on the top of this general, this h2. Let me give this a class name of margin top of 10. And then let me say text should be 4XL so that it is the same size as this one. Fantastic. Would you look at that? Would you look at that? Looking fantastic. This should be 3XL on small screens, I've just realized. So this is for large screens, and then text 3XL for small screens, so that it is the same size as this one on small screens, and then on large screens they are also the same size. Looking fantastic. Would you look at that? Would you look at that? And just like that, we have completed the project. It does look quite nice. It looks quite nice. Would you look at this? Looking fantastic. Now, I did mention at the start that I already deployed a similar project like this, and actually that's the design that I've been using inside here. And this one, the one that I've built right now, I'm going to deploy it inside a separate repository, and I'm going to call that repository client dashboard YT. But in the description, I'm going to have both repositories. So the one for this one that I've just built, as well as this one that I was using for our guide. So in case you want to take a look at both of them, now what I'm going to do is our guide is already deployed, and this link is going to be in the description. But the repository that I'm going to create right now, I'm not going to deploy it so that I don't have different, like I don't have the same application on different links. I think that is just counterintuitive, being that we have really just created the same application with the very same functionality, right? So what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to close these two pages, and then I'm going to open up GitHub, and then I'm going to create a new repository. So now we can shut down our server. Oh, you know what? I've just remembered something. Let me show you something. Inside this application that you have deployed, this is just in case you're going to deploy your own one day. If I go into the project page, which is not the forward slash, so any page which is not the forward slash, meaning which is not the home page, if I go into any other page and then reload it, look what happens. It's going to reload and then give you an error, even though you know that this link does exist. So in order to fix that, then what you're going to do is this. You're going to go inside the root of your application. You can close all the other files here. So inside the root of your application, you're going to create a new file called netlify.toml. Netlify.toml. And by the way, I've only tested this on Netlify, so I don't know whether it works the same way on Vercel or any other kind of hosting. But on Netlify, in order to fix that, then what you need to do is inside your netlify.toml file, then you're going to add in redirects, and then we're going to redirect from equals to forward slash all links. We're going to be redirecting to forward slash index.html. And I don't think there's a forward slash here, by the way. And then we're going to return a status of 200. So basically that. And then when you add this in, what Netlify will do is it is going to trigger a redeploy, so that now when you navigate into a link that doesn't exist and you try to reload it, then it's going to reload properly. And to show you like how that works is I can show you my website. So let me go into my website here. And inside my website, if I navigate into like the portfolio tab and try to reload the portfolio tab, then you can see that I don't get any error. So that's basically how I fixed that error, and it took me a while to figure out. But once again, you know, you live, you learn, and you know, you research, you also learn. So let me create a new repository inside here, and this repository I'm going to call it client dashboard YT. So client dashboard YT. Okay, create repository, and then now I can shut all of this down. So close. And then what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to say git add package.json, and then git add package lock.json, and then git add post css.config.js, and then git add tailwind.config.js, and then I'm going to say git commit, and I'm going to say install tailwind, and then I'm going to say git add netlify.toml and git commit, and I'm going to say netlify redirects, and then let me go ahead and say git add all, and then git commit, let me say project complete. Okay, and then now let me go ahead and copy this link, and I'm going to say git remote add origin and paste in that link, and then git push -u origin main, which is going to push it to GitHub. So we just wait a moment for this to finish pushing, and then once we reload our repository, then we are going to see our changes. So right around now, come on, Okay, there we go. So now we can reload this and we should be able to see our changes here to the repository, looking fantastic. So there we go. So now this is the repository that we have just created right now for this project, the one that you have built in this video. But if you want the other project, the one that I was using, so basically this one here, the one that I was using as a guide, then the repository is called client dashboard. Okay, so the names are almost similar, but this one is called client dashboard, and then the one that I've just created right now is called client dashboard YT. So take note of that. Before we can end the video, I just want to mention that I've released a Figma Designs bundle, which contains 9 website templates, and it is all available on Gumroad for $59. So if you want to go ahead and get these 9 templates for websites that I have designed myself, then you can go into Gumroad, and the link is going to be in the description, and any purchase is going to be highly appreciated. So that is going to be the end of the video, and if you enjoyed it, then please leave a like and subscribe to the channel as well if you're not already, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye. Please subscribe to the channel if you're not already, and ring the notification bell so that you're always going to be notified of when I upload a new video.